Hi, welcome, couple of threeers. Thanks for joining us for another episode of season 11. And my name is Mabel. I'm joined here with my co-hosts, Agu and Ashley. And some of you may recognize a familiar face today. So we are joined again by one of our dear friends, Dr. Alexandra Arena, aka Dr. Allie, another big fan of the show. And today we're going to be talking about Decision Day and the reunion episode, just talking about season 11 as a recap. And so Dr. Allie is a social and emotional intelligence expert, soft skills ninja, and speaker. You also want to give a little bit more of what you do, Dr. Allie, before we dive in?
Yeah, for sure. I'm a speech therapist and behavior analyst, which basically means I'm obsessed with behaviors and communication. So I look at how people communicate and talk about how that could be affecting their relationships, either positively or negatively.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get started. So we're going to talk first about Decision Day. And this is when, we found out all the couples, are they staying married? Are they getting divorced? Are Olivia and Brett getting back together? Who knows? So do you want to dive in here? I don't know what to do. Seriously.
Yeah, let's do a recap real quick because we had 3 couples stay together, which I think for us at least kind of surprised us. I thought we'd have like 2. So the 2 couples who ended up, Brett and Olivia, like they decided to stay separated.
Woo!
And then
that's
we also lost.
Sorry. I thought you were going to go with the person who stayed together first. My bad. Continue.
No, okay. The other couple that didn't stay together is Christina and Henry. They had a real rocky road, and the rest of the couple stayed together. I think for me, the biggest surprise was Karen and Miles. But Dr. Allie, when you were watching that, was there any of the decisions that surprised you didn't expect?
I think Karen and Miles as well. And I was sort of happy to see, I feel like Karen always keeps this cool attitude, right? Like you can't see, but she just seemed genuinely happy on decision day. And I feel like Miles was pretty ecstatic. I could tell he didn't know which way she was going. So it was very sweet to see.
Yeah. I kind of felt like there was a disconnect for me between what we saw of their relationship and then how they acted on decision day and then in the reunion episode and beyond into social media and stuff, seeing how they interact with each other. It seems like such a jump, and I wish we could have seen them be more of a solid couple because it's just hard for me to connect that. I'm very curious what changed that much between the end of filming and then the decision day time.
Right. Well, even then, when they had that month of quarantine that they summed up in one episode, there's probably a lot more there that we could have seen their relationship progress because they did attribute it to that. They were like, hey, if decision day had been at the normal time, probably wouldn't have stuck around to be together, right? But because we were quarantining together, it really paid off, and that's why we're deciding to stay married for, right now. So that's great. And I want to ask, start with that question, Dr. Allie. How much of an impact? So speaking of, Miles and Karen, their relationship was impacted by this quarantine space that they were forced to live together longer and have this experience longer than 8 weeks. And that really defined their relationship and that helped them decide to stay together. What are your thoughts?
I think it's that whole, you had asked me last time if I would have, if me and my partner met, if we'd be married at first sight, and probably not, because I think people like Karen and myself included, it takes a little while to warm up. And I think maybe the safety of the fact that they're in this place together. Also, you're going through a global pandemic. Right. Whoever's around you, you kind of end up closer to in this, right? Even if, I know a lot of people who started dating at the beginning, and although they've broken up, still have immense respect for the person they were with at the beginning of quarantine, because it's just you did this really weird thing together, So I think the longer period actually could have helped them. For other people, it could have gone a different way, right? This is too much. Some people need to make a decision quickly. They're in it or they're not, kind of thing. And I think with our other couples, I don't know how well it would have gone for Brett and Olivia if they had stayed in the same place for that long.
Yeah, that's true.
Probably not.
I think that with Brett, he also had an issue with the fact that she was working in, the pandemic space and was around,
Mm-hmm.
like a high risk situation. And I mean, he didn't talk about that, but I just think that he also had an issue with that, being like so close to possibly be getting infected if she came home, and then yeah.
That whole situation. Okay, if you don't mind, I kind of want to go back to Karen and Miles because I think, kind of just echoing off what you guys said, I kind of expected everyone else who stayed together to do so, and I can't wait to talk about Woody and Amani and um,
They're just like the cutest thing.
the Amelias.
It's standard.
So,
Yeah, gold standard.
but I think with the Karen and Miles one, I am definitely nobody. I'm no expert in reading body language, but I did notice that they were trying to play it coy, and he kept on like he grabbed her hand a few times. He had like his hand on her lap, and I was like, okay, so they're together. And they both agreed to stay together. And I do understand that it could take time for that to kind of flourish, and it looks like we might have missed a lot of that just because they weren't able to film that. But my question on them is, do you think this is something that now that she has warmed up to him and it seems like they have a better understanding, could this be one of those situations where it took a while to develop, but it's going to be something that's hopefully strong and able to withstand whatever goes forth? Like his DMs being apparently popping is what we found out in the reunion episode. Things like that.
Yeah, well, even when that comment was made, like, how when you could tell a woman's feeling like insecure about it? I didn't get that at all from Karen. Like, it was just like, yeah, like this hot guy is getting a lot of DMs and like he's mine. So I think, yes, I think the fact that although sometimes Karen was so forthright in what she wanted and didn't want, and it kind of came across cold, I can see how that could come across to people. She was really explicit about it. And now I don't really know what happened behind scenes, but apparently they did come to a place of understanding. So I think their ability to communicate was like founded really early on. And Miles being so sort of open about his emotions and what he's feeling and thinking, I think as soon as Karen really needed time, because I think she thought that was fake for a while.
Right.
And then she kept
she
consistently seeing like, oh, this is just him. Like, I don't know. Have you ever met someone that's really nice and you're like, are you that nice? And then like, you're with them for a long time and you're like, oh, you actually are this really nice person. So I think she just had to trust. And then, I give him a lot of credit. He had a lot of patience. And as we had talked about last time, they had not been intimate before. I don't know. They weren't intimate to our knowledge before the reunion, right?
No.
So
before decision day, before reunion.
Before decision day, yeah. But yeah, reunion, yeah. But before decision day. So, I give him a lot of patience and credit for he must have known something about her was like gonna click for him.
That's good.
Yeah. I think he was just like patience is one of his greatest suits there. And that like carried him really far. And like it was clear that for him, the big frustration was like, I'm like my needs aren't being met because his love language seems to be one of them is like that like physical affection and like that kind of a thing, which she just like was not on board with for a long time. And like I could, in some ways I can understand that with like the pressure of not only the cameras, but then there's a pandemic, there's raging racial injustice, there's all these other things. She works in the healthcare field, right? That she's doing that all the time. She's like seeing what the pandemic, the effects of it are. Like that is a lot to just be dealing with on your own, but to be in a new relationship and then like feel like your partner is like needing intimacy or something, like that's not doesn't make you feel sexy, I don't think. So, like,
no. And new relationship where we got to remember that she had a preconceived notion before she met him too, which she had to like undo, even though I think some of her like fears about him being too emotional were true. Like in her standards, I don't think he's too emotional, but like they ended up being true. But then I think she started to realize that's actually a good thing for her. Like it was a good thing in their relationship. So yeah, I just think that I don't know if you noticed in the reunion, they were much more touchy.
Yes.
So I'm wondering once they were intimate, it was so much easier for her to give the touch kind of like, I wonder if it just comes all the time now they're in this great place. And I will say he always bragged about her cooking. So I wonder if, again, like she thought she was being really affectionate by these like amazing meals, but he really needed the touch, you know, like I wonder if they were just missing the mark on some things.
Yeah. It's like they're both communicating that love in different ways and their different love languages. Two ships in the night.
Yeah.
I think this
just got really ominous.
Like the biggest compliment he made was about her cooking. He's like, it just keeps on getting better and it's so good. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this man is.
Yeah, when he had his buddy over and they were like, you know, talking about if they're going to say yes or not, he was like, okay, tell me the positives. And he was just like, her cooking. He could not. It was like, no, that's it. Yeah. That's the big one.
But, you know, fast forward a little bit to the reunion episode, he was saying that up until that second he walked into, you know, sat on the couch and were with the experts, he was going to say no. He was going to get a divorce and, you know, walk away from it. So even then I was like, okay, I don't know what to think about that. I mean, in the moment, change. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I do think part of it is kind of echoing what you guys were saying in terms of he was extremely patient and I think he felt as if it was worth the wait. It seems like, well, we know that now, but at the moment it seemed like he was not happy about it, but was still willing to do so. So I'm happy it worked out for them. I have to be honest. I'm not, it's just part of something with the relationship kind of rubs me the wrong way a little bit, where it feels uneven. And I know that's a thing that I don't like when relationships feel uneven, but seeing them in a reunion episode where like they're both affectionate and apparently her mom loves him, like I see them more as a couple, where before in earlier recordings it felt like he was like her puppy or something, where like he was just constantly like trying to get attention from her and she would like occasionally give him some. And now it seems a little bit more balanced, which hopefully that continues. So I guess enough about them. If you guys don't mind, can we talk about Woody and Amani?
Yes. I mean,
the best couple. Oh my gosh,
a lot of tears were shed from everyone, apparently.
They're so real, too. I think that's what makes them so cute. Like, they just say whatever they're thinking. Like, it's just adorable.
Yeah.
But they also just put their all in this relationship. So they are, you know, meeting each other where they are. They're being respectful of one another. They really want to be in this, which they both came into this experiment saying, I want to try, right? And that really worked for them because that just helped them be their authentic selves from the get-go and really focus on putting the relationship first, you know? So in particular, when they flashed back in the reunion episode to the racing competition between Miles and Karen, and Amani goes, Karen's going to win, obviously. And Woody just shut up. He was like, the wife has spoken. Like, I just thought that was a very small, just view of just the bigger picture that they have. They're just focusing on them as a couple first, you know. Yes, they're in an experiment. Yes, they're on reality TV, and yes, they are just met, and there's all these different reasons that maybe it shouldn't work out, but like they're still trying to put it first. So I love them.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm curious, like with your whole profession being around communication, like what are the main things you would say we can learn from Amani and Woody, and like the best things about their communication styles that are like could be emulated by other people who want to like improve relationships or whatever it is?
Ooh, that's a good one. Well, I was thinking before when you guys were speaking that, because I agree, they put the relationship first. But what I liked about both of them when they came in, they were pretty whole people. Like, I felt like Woody kind of had
Sure.
talked about his history and like stuff with his dad and maybe how that has impacted him. Like, he was very aware of his stuff. And I feel like Amani really met him with that, right? There was just no judgment. She let him talk. I feel like one thing they both did beautifully with each other is they really listened.
Yeah.
And I don't think neither of them really sounded like they were in a rush. They were playful too. Like, remember when Woody said, "I love you" first, and she was like, "I'm almost there." I think she said, "I'm in deep like" or something. I forget how
Yeah.
she put it, but
Yeah.
like, it was playful and it was sweet, and it wasn't at all like they never put each other like against each other. It's not like, "Oh my gosh, you love me, now I'm feeling insecure because like I don't know if I love you yet." You know, it was just always they're very transparent. They really listened. And the fight, what was their fight about? Wasn't he like texting a girl or something
She wanted
during
to see his
quarantine?
Yeah,
Yeah.
his DMs.
Yeah. I kind of appreciated that she like screamed and like, not, I'm not condoning like freaking out, but I appreciated that she was just like, yeah, I'm pissed. This isn't cool. Like, not going to work, you know? And obviously they got past it because the next segment they were like cuddling. So I also like that it sounded like when stuff was going wrong, they both said it. They didn't like sit with it and then it came out later.
Yeah.
I think that's a really big communication tip for people. Like, if it's bothering you in the moment, it's gonna bother you 2 weeks from now. So like a big thing, like, you know, people sending DMs. I could see how that could be a real issue. Yeah.
But yeah, I as you're just reading my mind here, I felt like I wasn't expecting Woody to be great at this. Honestly, from the beginning, I think the scene where his friends were saying, "Oh, Miles, you're ready for this. Woody, I don't know about you," but quickly within the season, like you started to see that he, I don't know, for lack of a better term, like got it out of his system almost, where like he wanted to be in a relationship at that point, it seemed like. And he put all his cards in, which was awesome. And just being so affectionate and throwing all the flirting shots in the world, just continuously trying, which was great. And I think like they made it look easy, which is awesome, because I think on paper there are some things that some people would consider red flags for them. You know, the fact that he lives with his grandmother, the fact that he's growing in his career, but it's not where he wants it to be necessarily. Like, I think for another couple, that would have been something that they would hark back to over and over again. But with them, they just were, like I said, meeting each other where they were, which was great. And I give so much credit to Amani for that. I think she was just, her like whisper talk thing that she does, it's so, like, she really did just let him explain himself. Like that hair argument where he said the thing that could have turned into a bigger argument, and she let him explain himself. And Pastor Cow, same, kudos to you, Pastor Cow, for like letting them.
Obviously.
You're welcome, Pastor Cow. But like they're able to like address it and talk it through. And once he gave his explanation, you know, it made sense. Would I have used those exact words? No, but I totally see where he's coming from, and you could tell she did too. And yeah, they were relationship goals, I guess, out here.
Yeah, they didn't try to change each other. And yeah, there was like one scene, didn't Woody have like hats on his wall? And she
Yeah,
was
his
just
hat
like,
wall.
yeah, no, that's not happening in our place. But she said it in such a like, you know, I feel like she chose times to make comments and then other times to not get upset about stuff.
Yeah.
Like, he spends a lot on clothes. Like, I think she was like, okay, when we do a budget, that's going to change, but not like, I'm mad right now. This has to be like a sit down discussion, you know? Like, I feel like she was flirty, but made her point kind of thing. And who knows, maybe that is a fight a year from now, like about clothes, but they seem to want to meet each other so much that I feel like if she was like, I'll think about having a baby if you don't spend $500 a month on clothes. You'd be like, all right. Like, I think it would kind of just pan out.
They could have the baby and the dog.
Yeah, like I think they were very playful. They never got too, like, they were so excited about every like couple's vacation. Like, everything was just fun.
Yeah.
And with them, I also want to get your input on this. So Amani and Woody were kind of the couple that just kept asking everybody about their updates. So asking Christina, getting involved in that relationship and understanding how Henry was feeling. And they just kind of, even in group settings, were just like prying almost a little bit into like everybody else's relationship. What do you think about that?
Getting all the tea. All the tea.
All the tea.
I feel like that's both of their personalities. But it could have been, you know, when you have something really good going on, that whole like the other shoe's gonna drop. Like, I wonder if they were almost like comparing, like, are we normal? Is this how what is happening with other people? I don't know. Like, I think we're doing great, you know. It could also just be their personalities. Like, I don't know. I love that. Like, yeah. Olivia and Amani, I think, are like super good friends still. This is all Instagram stalking. Yep. But like, yeah, so I think
you're in a safe space. Like, we all do it here.
Yeah. We've all done it.
Yeah. So I feel like maybe that's
Woody's
just
birthday
like
just passed.
Them. Oh, see, I didn't even know that. Okay. So see, you're more on it than me.
Stalker of the year goes to yeah, no, you're right. Like, they and Woody and Henry, it seems like from the reunion episode, seem to have a maintained relationship, which is great. I wonder if it was, you kind of mentioned the thing about if you go through a situation together. I know, like, Bachelorette and Bachelor World, a lot of the people on that show are friends because it's such a odd situation to go through together. You end up bonding. And I know my personal example would be, like, I went to boarding school for my high school education, and it was we were really close. Like, you live with them, you see them all the time, you go to class with everyone. Like, there's a level of closeness where it felt like it's like, we're all in this together. And I wonder if that happens naturally for people on this show, because we've seen a lot of like good friendships, which is cool.
Mm-hmm. And like the friendships that already are there. So Miles and Woody now live like, what, 4 doors down from each other?
Too close.
I think that's the block to live on right there. Like, seriously. Always visiting each other. I remember in the beginning when it was the wedding nights, and then Miles and Woody like had to go say hi to each other that night, like before they went to bed. I was like, it's your wedding night. Just you'll see each other tomorrow. But I was like, I really hope Amani and Karen like each other, because they are forced to be friends.
I was hoping that. I was like, for their sake, I hope that they all stay together, because like, what if, you know, Amani and Woody excel great, they work out, and then like Miles and Karen don't work out? That's like a constant reminder of the show then at that point. I don't know.
They'll be together forever, and it's fine. It's okay. We won't even entertain the thought. Yeah. We're good.
No, they're together forever and ever. No, but I was also going to say, you know, another thing that Amani and Woody did a really good job with is sort of like taking advantage of the things that the show offered. So like, I feel like when they were speaking with an expert, they were really speaking with an expert. And just like we were saying, they let the community of people around them be a community. Like, it was so sweet how like angry Woody was for Henry. Yeah. Like, he was like, no, like, that's not cool. And like, that didn't feel gossipy at all. That felt so genuine. Like, not cool.
Yeah. It felt like one of their recurring themes was just that both Amani and Woody could be present pretty much all the time. They were never like, I think what we saw with like Christina a little bit is she kind of had these storylines. So she was kind of in this like slightly different realities than what was happening. But like with them, it's like they were always right there. And it was just, they're just very, I don't know how to say other than just very present. I think that lends itself well to like being in a relationship, because then you're actually like seeing what's happening as it's happening, and you're not like, you know, in another place.
Yeah, living in the moment.
I didn't articulate that very well, but I don't care.
It was actually, it was good. I will I kind of want to piggyback off your comment with Henry and Christina, because that seems like a great transition point there.
Yeah, let's go there.
So on decision day, they did not decide to stay together.
What?
I know.
What?
I know. Tears. I feel like Christina was a little surprised by that, just a little bit, which was interesting. But I guess I know we can talk about the reunion episode as well, because Henry had kind of said the things that he wanted to say, it felt like, for a while. Kind of cleared the air. And as I think we kind of all suspected, the being accused of cheating and then of lying of his sexuality, he did not like. That seemed to be a very, very major part. But I don't know if this is just me. I actually felt bad for Christina a little bit in the reunion episode. I had the feeling that, like, it's clear that she knew that she messed up, and I think she regretted that quite a bit. But clearly she messed up really bad. So just wanted to get your thoughts on just that whole dynamic there in terms of the relationship, but more importantly, you kind of mentioned a different world that you had. If that played a larger part in their demise or their splitting up than we anticipated before. That's a lot of questions, but
Yeah, no. I have a lot of thoughts. The one, okay, I'm not trying to bring in old seasons of Married at First Sight, but the season previous to this, who was the individual who posted on Instagram? She was like, I'm looking for
Taylor?
Yes. Okay. Remember how Taylor to the end was like, no, I didn't see this, as I didn't realize I was doing something wrong.
Yeah.
So to me, blatantly, like, not cool.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if Christina truly thought, remember, because she said that she was like, I was just saying it to Henry to, like, tell him to, like, just tell him. I didn't think he thought I meant it was real. What was her feedback about because Henry was like, you blatantly said, like, I was, like, cheating and cheating with a man. And she was like, no, I was saying it to you to, like, just to let you know. I didn't realize you interpreted it that I, like, meant it. I forget exactly what she said, but basically, like, Henry misinterpreted. So I'm not sure. Christina did seem like she was in her head a lot. Even at times she almost, like, looked up, like, I'm processing, like, I'm not here right now, you know? So I don't know if she had so many thoughts, so many ideas of what it was supposed to be, that she was kind of out of touch with reality. Not to be malicious, she was just so in her head.
Yeah.
And then, because I agree with you, in the reunion, I mean, I think there were things that Christina did that I wasn't a huge fan of, but in the reunion, when Henry was kind of just, like, getting really real with her, I think she was super uncomfortable and embarrassed, but also, like, I don't know if she fully comprehended a lot of the things she did and if that was coming to light for her. Because, you know, unfortunately, she just made a lot of comments throughout the whole season that you were like, ooh, that's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I don't know. When I look back now, I'm like, did she realize? I don't know if she knows how she comes across. I think that's an issue she might have.
Yeah.
And when she's uncomfortable, especially, it's worse. Like when she was like, I've just been in Mexico and, like, sure, there's a guy. Like, she basically was like, I don't want to talk about this. Like, I'm super uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But the lack of words makes it almost weirder. Like, I don't know if that's what happened the whole season.
Yeah. I kind of felt like in that moment, and when they were really focusing on her in the reunion episode, it felt like she was in real time processing that I did something, like, pretty bad, and that's completely against what I thought I did and also how I see myself. And so you could, like, almost see her realizing, like, I did a bad thing. Does that mean I'm a bad person? I don't think I'm a bad person. And, like, just, she, like, kind of had this look on her face of just kind of, like, frantic almost, of like, oh no.
Yeah.
And I mean, and that's, I don't agree with what she did at all, but, like, that setting is super intense. You have cameras in your face, you have your ex-husband next to you, you have an interviewer trying to get the dirt from you, and you have an audience of millions of people who now have an opinion about who you are as a person. And I think like the internet backlash of like how people are perceiving her and then talking about her on the internet because this was a show, I think that's going to be a really hard thing for her. Like I hope it's a time for her to like kind of reflect, but it was really difficult to watch. As much as like I didn't like what she did, it was like I felt that pain.
Something that came up previously before decision day was when Christina and Henry were talking about confidence. And she was like, yeah, I think I'm confident. But then when you like see this series of events play out and she is so worried about perception and really is just focused on what other people are thinking and how she is like processing this in the moment. I'm curious for, someone who's worked with people just trying to understand themselves, how do you think that conversation could have been handled differently, that confidence conversation specifically, with Christina and Henry talking about this like almost issue that only Henry had at that point kind of thing?
Well, one thing, and I didn't think about this kind of until right now when you were talking, but you tend to, the thing you really want your partner to change or get better at, you need, right? Like your partner's a mirror for you a lot. So I'm wondering if the confidence thing really hit her, because although I think she was confident that she could be on this show and that she would try to do the right things, I didn't get the impression from her that she was truly confident in her skin, which is probably why these two had such issues communicating, because I don't know if either of them ever felt grounded enough to say what they really needed to say. Like even Henry, it took him until, he was divorcing her to be like, oh yeah, these are all the reasons I'm divorcing you. And I don't know if that was like, I'm avoiding this because I just don't want to get in an argument with you, or I don't like being mean. Like maybe it's that whole like Southern gentleman, like I don't want to say anything mean to you. But it's interesting how much they were kind of both in their own heads, not really displaying confidence. I think, and also I think with those, I think Dr. Viviana gave those questions right for them to like, it was kind of like an intimacy sort of thing. I think where that went wrong, and like, it's not, Dr. Viviana was trying to help, but I don't think they had any safety. Like, I don't think those two felt safe together. So then to like try to pull like a vulnerability, like, and then if you also are a little insecure, it's just, you can get defensive, or you could be like, yeah, like I definitely want someone confident. Which like, so everyone wants someone confident, but like, I wouldn't say the whole world's confident by any means,
Yeah, and especially right after he says he struggles with it, be like, yeah, that's actually a deal breaker.
Yeah, that felt like a jab. That felt like a jab to say that right after.
And she didn't see that, it doesn't seem like. So that's where I'm like, I wonder if she had a lot of narratives in her head that she wasn't even, they are an example of a couple that did not listen to each other at all. Yeah. Like in real time, we're not even responding to the same comments. Like, and that comment she'd made about like flowers, like he goes to the grocery store all the time, but he doesn't bring me home flowers. And it's like, well, one, I'm pretty sure that's like a romantic comedy thing you picked up on, right? Like that's just not, like,
not how it works all the time.
Flowers.
I will say, do you know what's
chocolate.
funny? So I watched that episode. And I like, my fiance was like, I don't know, probably playing with like his 3D printer or something. And I'm like, honey, look, like she wants flowers. He was like, do you want flowers randomly? And I was like, yes. Do I have to say that to you? And he was like, yeah. And then literally 2 weeks later, he was like, I got them because that girl brought it up on your show.
And it worked out.
Yeah.
So thank you, Christina.
Oh my gosh, that's almost like when Woody and Imani, like there. So when Kevin was talking to Woody and Imani, and Kevin was talking about how his wife was like side eyeing him, like
yes, yeah.
We're like way another level.
Yeah,
standard.
It's funny you mentioned the flowers thing, because Ashley has told a story about us, but like that was a thing where she would just buy flowers for herself. She just likes the smell of it. At a certain point, I'm like, I feel like I should be getting flowers. This seems like something I this seems like a hint. It wasn't. She was
It
just
wasn't.
getting.
I just wanted them, so I got them.
Yeah.
But
But at a certain point, it's like, okay, these make you happy, and I want to make you happy. So it makes sense. Um, it's very interesting. It makes sense. It's very funny though with them. Henry's my favorite person on this season so far. I confess. I just the way he like lays out his case when he does. It's like a lawyer that has like it's great. It's really great, and he's got like receipts and dates, and I really enjoy. I really enjoyed him this season, but when he started explaining that like on the wedding day, I was told that she had a very toxic relationship with a married man for 5 years. And like, if you knew that from the wedding day, you weren't in this. And I always struggle with this in general with the season, because you do want to give the person the benefit of the doubt, and you do want to see if it's going to work. And you're in a marriage, so you want to see if it could work. But part of me also thinks, if you know that this is a big fundamental difference, why are you going through this? Call it off. Like I that's the one thing I would give Brett and Olivia credit for, or Brett credit for. Once he realized this wasn't going to work, he called it off. Did he do it in the best way? No, but I think he knew at that point that there's no way this is going to work going forward. And my concern with Henry is he knew that very early from what we heard in the reunion episode, and still continued, which would then explain why it felt like Christina was trying a lot, because she didn't realize that there was no chance of this working out. And it just kind of all compounded, unfortunately.
And to feel, it sounds like or I even felt it. It felt like Christina felt like she was getting like micro rejected a lot. Like, like he didn't call her pretty on the wedding day, which like, that's like a no brainer, right? If you see a bride, you're just supposed to be like, you're pretty. Like that's what you do. And he didn't do that.
That are babies.
And I just think,
I'm sorry.
yeah, like your dog's cute, your baby's cute. Like you just do that. But like he didn't. So I just think it was like these little micro, like, okay, wait, he's not responding to that. I mean, she said it pretty often that she didn't think he was attracted to her. He liked her. Like, so that could be happening. When you start feeling insecure in a relationship, you kind of can't get out of your head. So that could have been half of it too. Like she just couldn't get out of her thoughts. And then she was very aware of the cameras.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was then like double insecurity. Like this man doesn't really seem to like me. I'm on camera, like, and I think the thing about where she lives, that was interesting, because I actually lived with a flight attendant like when I was in grad school. This is a long time ago. But they are kind of weird about saying where they live, because they don't really like she lived with me, but like not really. Like she paid rent like half a month. So I wonder if was a little bit of it too. Like she's like, I just met this person. I'm not going to explain like, well, I live in 3 different crash pads, but like keep stuff at my mom's. Like, so, and if they had communicated a little initially, maybe she could have cleared that up pretty quickly, but he held it. So like, I think that happened too. He held a lot, and then I did feel like he came down kind of hard on her, like you said, with like receipts. Like she couldn't have said anything back at the decision day. Like,
no, it's like case closed. Right. Like it's over. The judge is telling everyone to go home.
Yep. Yeah.
It seems like the main issue though is that, like you're saying, like if you're having a problem with your partner, if you don't talk about it, then it's going to come up later. And I don't necessarily think that as problems come up, that it's bad to give it a minute to think about it and then bring it up later. Like that's something I do a lot, because sometimes I just can't handle it in the moment. I'm like, I need to think about how I'm going to talk about this. But it seems like Henry was just like, oh, here's a thing, noted it, and then was just like, that was it. There was no more parts of the process. Or like there was no chance for her to explain herself. There was no chance for her to explain why her stuff is all over the place. She doesn't really have an address because her work, it doesn't make sense to, or like the thing with her past relationship being so toxic and it was with this married man. Like, it sounds really complicated. Like, that could have been a conversation like, hey, what happened there? I heard this. Like, that sounds like a hard thing to go through. And then she could probably give the storyline of like, yeah, once that ended, I realized I needed something serious and wanted to like move on with my life with something that was healthy and stable and, you know, have some experts take this decision out of my hands because I don't feel like I pair myself with people who are good for me.
Mhm.
That could have been like something that they moved on from and been like, cool, let's do this right. And like, I'll be that person for you. But they never got, like, they never talked about it. Like, it just never happened. Like,
Yeah.
they didn't give it a chance.
And building off of that, I want to hear your advice, Dr. Ali, for couples and I should say individuals that join this show. So Henry said that he was just trying to be nice in the beginning to Christina. He didn't want to just, kind of lay it all out there, kind of like what he did at the reunion episode. He was like, I'm done, no filter, you're having it all. What advice would you give to people that, want to be nice to their partner in the beginning, give them benefit of the doubt, talk as if everything is okay kind of thing. But you also see where Henry tried to do that and it didn't work out in the best way for him because he kind of built this up basically.
Yeah, I mean, so it's obviously really helpful if you don't hear anything about your partner, right? Because then it truly is like a new thing. Because again, I think that was a little bit of Karen's problem too. She stalked his Instagram. She had a notion. So, if you can avoid that, I think that would be the best advice. But also I think at least through like the honeymoon, couples who try to have fun together have a better chance of being together long term, right? So it's probably not going to work well, even if you heard something awful, like first night being like, so I heard that you were in like a really crappy relationship before this. Like, it's just not, there's no safety, there's no security, there's no funness, you're not bonded. Like, I'm going to be more receptive to a big conversation if I feel like we have some connection or memory that I can pull on to want to have a conversation with you, right? The reason couples are okay after they have a big fight is they have this like long list of great things about the relationship already to make that conversation okay. So maybe let's at least get through the honeymoon and then drop a bomb. I don't know.
That's fair.
No, I love that you mentioned that because when I think back, a lot of the couples that we've seen on the show that have had problems, so Amika and Michael, for example, from the previous season, where it felt as if they were trying to use their rational mind to explain the relationship. And they're like going through, okay, well, do you want kids? All right. Well, okay, we'll have a car we'll have a sedan then because we're going to have two kids. And like they were going through all the checkpoints of things you're supposed to talk about, but it was so academic and it wasn't fun and it wasn't flirty. Well, then you compare them to like a couple like Woody and Amani who are just constantly flirting, or a previous season again, Jessica and Austin, where they're very
they were so cute.
Like they were making jokes about a farting couch and stuff. Like they were very awkward in their way, but comfortable with that and very jokey. And just seeing I butchered that word, but just comparing the two between like the smart academic way of looking at it / versus the like fun and more experience way, at least in the beginning. That totally makes sense to me. It's like, all right, you got to build up some goodwill there before you start talking about your Roth IRA or something.
Yeah, and I think exactly they're in a, experts did do this for them. So as much as they can, like I'm a little bit of a control freak. There's no lie about that. But as much as you can, like you don't need to control the first few days because someone else already did all this like academic research for you, like there's a reason you're together. So just kind of trust it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's an interesting topic too. Trust. I mean, it sounds like some had it, some didn't. Some were just like, yeah. And I mean, Amani and Woody, obviously, they're just like the go-to couple of golden standard for everybody. So they're the couple that really had some good trust in the beginning. But even when we talked about earlier, like Miles and Karen, there was a mismatch of the level of trust that they had for each other. And then even, like Olivia and Brett, I would also argue, didn't have that from the beginning either. And so could you talk a little about that when it comes to trust? There are some people that give it off the bat. Some people that are like, you got to earn it. And this is a pressure cooker situation. Like, how do you see both of those kind of personalities carrying out in this?
That's so interesting. I almost wonder if that should be a question they're asking in like the interviews.
Yeah.
Because I actually I like co-taught on this like business communication course, and one of the big things was trust. And I didn't know, you're right, it's actually 50% just automatically trust you, and then the rest of the world you have to earn it. So it would be helpful for them to know that, because like at the same time I was saying like have fun and like enjoy each other, because for me, if someone you got to earn it. So if you came out and you were just like, yes, this is me, like there's alcoholism in my family, so I have that trauma, and then I have this, and like I want 8 kids and blah blah blah, I would be like, I don't even know you. I don't need to, I shouldn't have this information. You know what I mean? So I think that people need to feel that out in each other. You could even ask too. I mean, I think one thing I will say about the show that stinks is you have to be really upfront about what you kind of struggle with. So if you are a person that has a hard time getting intimate quickly, whatever that looks like, right? Whatever touch, if you know that about yourself, I would say it again in a more like playful, like I'm just saying this up front because I don't want you to ever feel like you're doing something wrong and I don't want to touch you. It just takes me a little bit to open up, because that's another thing. Like, I think if Henry had at one point been like, hey, I know I haven't been as affectionate, it's because I'm thinking about this. Can we figure it out? They could have maybe repaired, right? So it's all on how you say it too.
That's true.
That's a good go-to quote, is it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great skill to learn, because like you can like say something that's very real in a soft way, and just to constantly talk about Imani and Woody, because this is the Imani and Woody podcast now. they do that. They can talk about like the big stuff, and it's like just weirdly flirty and real all the time, but it's somehow light too.
So cute. I know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And to pivot to a couple we haven't talked about, I'm so surprised I haven't talked about them yet. We love them too. Amelia and Bennett. They are obviously like so goofy. That song that they did for Kevin.
I'm sorry. That song was rough. That was rough. Have her do the
They're
singing.
just two like quirky weirdos that found each other. It's so perfect.
Yeah.
Yes. And the tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The man got a tattoo, a stick and poke tattoo, which I feel like that one would hurt more than like going to a tattoo parlor to get that done. Like someone literally was like jamming a needle in his skin over and over to put her initials up on his hip. But like, also, what if she said no and then he just had a tattoo on it?
That's a good story to have.
I feel like he would have been fine. Yeah. Like he would have just been like, all right. Cool.
Girl I used to know.
Yeah, like it wouldn't be a thing.
So we were married for like 8 months, so I have the tattoo. It's fine.
Yeah.
So for the next girl, if you can beat that, you're getting your tattoo.
But they seem to be doing well. I mean, they moved like, according to Amelia, it was like the day after decision day that they had to go. And, you know, they all decorated their car and everything with the little, like, it was really cute. Later, I saw on Instagram that Dr. Viviana was like in a building across the street. I'm assuming it was like a hotel room. And she was like creeping through the windows and was like recording them on the street, like decorating the car. It was really sweet.
Oh, that's so
Paparazzi.
cool.
Yeah, I'll be watching the song playing.
Paparazzi out here.
That's so funny. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure she was obsessed with them. So right? She was probably like, yay.
She's like, I did this.
Yeah. I mean, they're another couple, though. Always joking, always having fun, so inspired by each other's interests, so inspired by each other's like quirkiness, you know? And even the chores thing, actually, again, my fiance was watching in the other room and he thinks I'm not as neat as him. So he was like, should we do what they're doing and just put the list of chores out and then pick from a bucket? We haven't done it yet, but I was like, yeah, I mean, it's not a bad idea. Cause you fall into like, when you're in a relationship, sometimes like you just are the person that does the bathrooms or whatever. Right. So it's like a nice way to switch it up. But even that, it became fun. Like they looked at their problems and did something different with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're relentlessly creative, which I love about
They
them.
are.
And
Yeah.
like we talked a lot in like past episodes about how like their dynamic when it comes to parenting and how she kind of wants him to be a stay-at-home parent so she can like continue on with her doctor career and like not have that be affected by babies and all those things. How do you think they'll do with that? Like if that's kind of the setup that they decide to do, where he's the stay-at-home parent and she's working.
It's interesting because he had said at one point that he would want that. Am I mistaken? Didn't he
Seemed
say
open
at some
to
point?
it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's gonna go. I hope it goes well. She doesn't strike me as someone who would need to control every instance of like her child's upbringing. And he, I was actually impressed that he was the one about chores that was like, no, this isn't done to a certain standard. I kind of liked that was in there, like, so I think he can really do step up and do a lot of those things that need to happen. So I don't know. I think that could be great. Their kids are very lucky. They're going to end up like just so
Seriously.
creative, like probably move a bunch of places. Like they're just going to have a very cool life.
Yes.
They're going to be carbon copies of them, where they're like quirky and have a interesting personality, or they're going to be so buttoned up and like so suit and tie, like they're going to
Corporate.
Yeah, I want to be an accountant.
accountants. Woo woo.
So cool.
I mean, talk about two confident people, right?
Yeah.
Like truly just like, this is me. And you know what was cool about them, and same with Amani and Woody? No ego, no like she's gonna be a doctor. He is what a playwright was kind of his like main thing, right? Yeah. But like, there's probably a little bit of disparity in income. Like it was never, he was so proud of her for that. Like it was great.
Yeah. Yeah. And now in the reunion episode, I think we found out that he is a solar energy consultant or something like that. Like,
oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which is
I forgot about
like
that.
the perfect job for him. That's spot
Yes.
on. It's interesting so I'm starting to realize the more we watch the show, and similar to you, I'm definitely like picking up pointers like, oh, that's something interesting. Like, oh, I might need to do that in my personal life. But I'm starting to realize, I think before I had this notion in my head, and I think a lot of people do, that you have to be perfect or like as close to perfect before you can find your person. And I know for like there was a lot of relationships that I feel like people don't even consider it because they're like, oh, I haven't hit my income level that I want yet, or I haven't developed whatever skill yet, so I know I can't be in a relationship now. And the more we watch this, the more I realize, like, you can it sounds cheesy, but you can have both, where like he mentioned that he had never had earned more than 20,000 in a year, which is, for at least in the United States, that's below poverty level, right? So he isn't as secure financially as he'd like to be, and he's okay with that. He's willing to pursue his creative endeavors, but as the season went on, you could tell that he wanted to work on that, and like he even started hinting things like, okay, well, we're both going to work now, and we're both doing, like, you could tell that he realized, hey, I want to build myself up in this aspect. And similar to the Woody and Amani, I feel like if that was another couple or a person who wasn't willing to meet them where they were, that could be a huge thing. Like this could be Brett and Olivia's arguments about money. I mean, their income discrepancies aren't nearly as large as 20,000 and a medical doctor. So, but they were fine. They're able to deal with that situation and meet each other where they were. I think the advantage for the Ben and Amelia is he is an amazing communicator. Like the amount of times that he would just summarize things, I'm like, that's exactly how I feel. How did you know? Like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Like when he used the whole pressure cooker for the pandemic analogy, I was like, oh my goodness, that's why you're a playwright. This makes sense. You're great.
Yeah.
So he was able to communicate how he felt about that with her, which I think was helpful. But if to kind of ask you that line about like meeting a person where they are, how does one balance? Because there's, doing that, but then maybe they're not going to change, right? So maybe that's where they're going to stay. And I think that's a thing that people do in relationships where they're like, okay, he's no good now, but he's going to be better in 5 years. And typically that doesn't happen. So how does like one strike that balance of meeting their partner where they are, but also deciding if it's a big enough thing where they would want to reconsider the relationship? It's like kind of picking their battle.
This is good. Okay. Okay, first thing, I think it's supposed to be get really clear on what you want. Like, when you look at these dating profiles, it's like, yeah, sure, I would love to marry someone that went to Harvard, makes $400,000 a year, and is like 6'5". Cool, that'd be great. That's not what I'm doing at all, though. Yeah, like I think these profiles sometimes set people up for such
it's wild
failure. Yeah. It's like you're not meeting that person. Yeah. It's not happening.
You're not meeting the Rock.
So yeah, like
Agu loves The Rock.
He's
so
6'5".
I mean, I like Nicholas. The Rock.
Why don't you not like The Rock? Okay, he's a national hero, basically. He's a national treasure.
I feel like you like The Rock more than me.
Ooh,
I don't.
He's very silent.
Maybe.
All right, we'll find out later. Continue, Dr. Allie.
Equal level.
Good analysis.
Equal. It's right there.
Oh my god. So I think, first get clear on what your list of stuff is that matters to you, right? And income is hard. I get it. Like, I think if you're maybe with someone and let's say like a doctor and a playwright. I didn't get the impression from Amelia that kind of having someone of the same like caliber as her was something that mattered. But maybe you're a person that like took out 1 million loans to go to become a doctor, and like the medical field matters so much to you, and you want someone to be able to talk about medical things with, like, okay, then you probably need to, it's probably not going to work to be with someone that there's that big of a difference. So I think, again, the income thing is hard, but get really clear with yourself on like what's going to work. Like for Olivia, traveling meant a lot. Going to nice restaurants meant a lot. There is no shame in that. That is something she wants and needs out of life. Yeah. She chose a career to give that to herself. So again, just like getting clear on what works for you. I think though, to your point, you don't want to be like dismissive though, if you think someone can like grow. So I think the bigger thing is like personality. So like if maybe having a certain type of life is a big deal to you and you're meeting someone, they're just starting their career, but you can tell they're like ambitious as hell, you're probably fine. It's more important to be like, oh, this person's super ambitious and I love this about them. Mm-hmm. Let's see where this goes. But I agree with you. I think this show does show like you don't have to be perfect to get the person that you want and that you're going to grow. Like you were saying, Bennett saw, I think for the first time, something really real and the type of life he could have and wanted to step up. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So just want to put PSA out to all the Nigerian people out there, people with Nigerian parents. This is to you specifically. Because the point you said about the whole being perfect thing, that's like a joke in the Nigerian community. Is like why everyone gets married in their late 30s because their parents.
Just to clarify, Agu is Nigerian.
Yes,
I was getting that.
Yes. Yeah. That's the joke that like everyone is married in their 30s because their parents want them to have like their PhD first before they even consider it. So it's very interesting Yeah, you're totally right in terms of like, okay, like seeing, I guess, like you said, the traits of being like, okay, this person has the same values as me. So that's okay. And everything else we can kind of figure out along the way. I totally get that. Um, is it, you mentioned so I guess that we go to like finances a lot with that sometimes, but for Olivia and Brett, I know finances was part of it, but I also think part of it was the kids situation
Yeah.
where I might be misremembering this, but I think she said in the reunion episode that when she was listing things that she was looking for going forward, she mentioned someone who didn't want kids. And I think that one in particular, there's like this weird, well, it's not, we have like a stigma in our in society where like if a woman says she doesn't want to have kids, people automatically want to be like, well, why? You need to give me reasons why, as opposed to just, okay, she just doesn't want to have kids. And with that situation, how does, because that's something where like maybe she could decide she wanted kids, but if you're leaning more towards no, and Brett, he did want kids, like, is that something that one could say, all right, this is my thing. I want someone with kids. And if you don't feel that way, you're cut off? Or is that something that a person could try to look for the signs on that too?
That's a big one.
Yeah, I kind of think as a woman, and especially if you're, like later 20s, early 30s, and, I mean, I don't want to speak for all women, but I think you get to a point where you either know you want to do it or you don't. So I would, if a woman is blatantly saying, I don't want to have kids, maybe like she's finds the man of her dreams or the woman of their dreams. They want to, whatever. Maybe she finds a partner of her dreams, but the chances of that I think are pretty slim. Or it's going to be a way bigger conversation because she could be older and be like, you know what, maybe I did want this. Can we make this happen? But that one, if you're a partner and you want to have kids, I don't know if I would mess around with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. What do the other women in the group think?
I think it's one of those things where like you're saying, there's this expectation that women are just supposed to want to have children. And if you say you're not sure or that you don't think so, then it's just like, oh, you'll change your mind, or you'll, see a baby one day and you'll just know, or, it's just going to magically happen that you're just like, yes, I would like to, do this thing that's going to literally change my life, change my body, change, like, there's so many implications to that. And so I don't, I would err on the side of if someone's like on the fence or a hard no, okay, like they will, if they're going to change their mind later, fine, but that's a huge risk to take. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think you want to be the person making them change their mind. And because of the stigma, for a woman to say, I don't want to have kids, she's probably thought about it. Like it probably wasn't just a haphazardly like, yeah, no, I'm not going to have kids. Like if it's coming out of her mouth, she's thought about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you bring up a really good point that a lot of women that, say they don't want to have kids, or even just like that want to have kids, like there has been thought that went into that, right? And it's not just like it seems pretty cool, right? But it seems pretty cool to have kids or to not have kids. But I think one thing with Olivia too, when she talked about it in the season, and I think, I believe her when she was talking to Brett about just really finding the right person first and caring more about that relationship. And if kids, come, cool. If not, she also doesn't, mind not having children. Because I also have a few friends like that, they are of the accord that they don't mind if they don't have kids. They're more concerned about living their life with their partner. And if that partner wants kids and they feel like that's a good partner for them, yeah, they'll have kids. And I think that was more towards, Olivia's point during the season. And then at the end of the season, when she talked about the reunion episode, got to find somebody who doesn't want kids. I think that's where she was. I mean, she also was clearly frustrated about all the things that had gone on with Brett. And I'm wondering if that was part of it. Like, it's almost like Brett was so far from really what made her happy, that she's kind of like swinging the pendulum back to be like, all right, next time I'm looking for somebody who doesn't want kids.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, Olivia was honest. And remember how we had talked about, I think Brett has a lot of black or white thinking.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I'm having kids. No, I'm having kids. There is no room for you to figure this out. And with him, to have kids with him, I think there would have been a lot of financial conversation. Like, it's not just like, oh, okay, maybe I'm thinking about it. I think he would have pulled out a spreadsheet and been like, okay, so this is where money's going. How are we planning that? So I think he needs a partner that's so excited for that and that wants him involved in all of it. And Olivia didn't seem like she would want someone super involved in her body and the decisions. And yeah.
Yeah.
She's much more independent that way.
So,
yeah.
So you're...
I love this. It's like, I don't know.
Well,
she's like, how do I phrase this?
I'm like...
Is this how he starts like a conversation with you? Is it like,
Like, I'm picturing all the landmines that I'm like trying to not step in right now.
Okay, that makes sense. I got it.
Because
this is recording, I think, is what's happening. Extra processing.
I'm a little tired today, but so with them, because it reminds me of the like Jamie and Elizabeth. Wow, we were just going back to old seasons quite a bit this episode.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
But like when they had their conversation, when he was like, "No, I don't want kids," and she's like, "Oh, thank goodness, I didn't want kids." But they both answered in the interview, "Oh, yeah, maybe if the person is right." And Olivia also said that, and I'm all for taking people at their words. But I think with this situation in particular, because of that stigma, it's hard for a lot of people. And there are Southern lady and Southern gentlemen, but like, it's hard for you to just say, no, I don't want kids. So it's easier for her. Like, I don't, like, if you're, like you said, if you've had to think about it, in my head, that means you're leaning more towards no. And if I'm the guy in that situation and I'm with a partner and she says, "Oh, if the person is right, I'll want to have kids." I mean, I think I don't want to disappoint myself, so it's probably better to assume no if in that case, because like I don't know how else to view that.
I think part of it though is weird. Like if we're talking about just if you're dating someone, you're not going to have the babies conversation for a while. So you might have built up this foundation, 6 months in, and you're, getting along great. And then suddenly you talk about kids. And it's like, if they say they don't want kids one day and you do you continue the I think in this situation, it's extra weird because like that's explicitly stated going into it, but they're also still deciding if that is the right person that they would want to have those children with. So they're figuring it out as they go. And that makes like, there's so much extra pressure in that.
But like, if you really wanted to have kids, you want to have kids, right? Like the part about it being the right person, it's like, I want to go to school, but it has to be the right school. Like if you want to go to school, you want to go to school. I know this is very black and white thinking, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong in this, but when you start putting all these different hoops and loops, it's like when banks give you it's free checking, but you have to have this much of a balance. You have to have a direct deposit. You have to have 3 people sign off on it. You have to send me a happy birthday message. It's like, it's not free checking. If I have to do all this stuff to get it.
The only difference I think though is that there's a difference between like knowing, you're trying to avoid somebody from like convincing you to say yeah, and just being okay if it doesn't happen. Also being okay if it does happen, but like being totally okay if nothing, hey, this could just be us for the rest of our lives. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think for women, there is a spectrum of how you come to your decision and where you kind of lie on it. So, I don't think like Olivia was trying to be like deceitful and saying she doesn't know, because it could happen. Also, like, I hate saying this, it's so like not feminist, but like hormones are a real thing. So who knows? She could end up with someone that she really is like, okay, now I see this and I want this and I like feel it. But I do think women, I have friends who are like, yeah, like my ovaries are calling. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I don't feel that
They're like
at all.
knocking.
And I want kids, right? So I'm saying like, I think there's a whole spectrum of like, whoa, okay, I've never had that sensation, to people that just are like, I know I want this. And then people who are still like, well, I want this, but I also, I don't know if I can balance like a thriving career. So if it happens, I'll go for it, but I'm not going to make it happen, kind of thing. So yeah. And I can see though, for a man, how that could get a little confusing. And then there's society, right? So there's the assumption of like, of course you want to have kids. You're a woman.
Right. And I think too, like,
that's what you're made for. Duh.
Yeah.
But I think
literally
like,
your primary role.
Exactly. That's your expectation.
God, we're getting canceled so hard after this.
But I think too, like a big consideration is that women's careers are much more affected by having families than men. And,
mommy track.
Yeah, that makes it like, it's a money thing. It's a time thing. It's a who's like, how are we going to either pay for childcare? Who's going to be the primary child caregiver? Like it's a complete life change to make all those considerations. And I think that's where like women are coming from when they're like, yeah, I'm not sure, because you have to kind of plan for all of those things like very much in advance. Like if you're able to save extra money, now you're thinking about like, paying for kids, which is a whole extra cost. Like if you're hoping to send them to college one day, if you're trying to like buy a house in
Harvard, 400 grand, obviously,
like get a house in a good school district, like your entire life changes. And so it's not just like like it's a huge decision. And I think we get like caught up into just like babies are cute, like you should want one of those. And it's like, no, it's not that simple. This is a huge consideration. So to me, it's like a good sign that people are thinking critically about it, of like, is this something that I actually want, or am I leaning towards this because it's just kind of an expectation? I haven't really thought about it before.
Yeah.
And I loved the Bennett and Amelia part, how Bennett brought up, how so many kids need to be adopted. I could see them being a couple that maybe has a biological baby and then does adopt. But that's because they're both really good at communicating. I think, if that does happen, that's probably why, because they're both communicating their needs and seem to just really care about everyone, like in general. They're very caring. I got that from, and I would say that about Amani and Woody. I felt like they were very caring people. Yeah.
Speaking of Amelia and Bennett and serious conversations, so with them, they even made it known at the reunion episode that they were like, okay, they were going through the motions of having these serious conversations throughout the show filming, but after filming, they just kind of let that go because they're just getting back to knowing each other and starting a relationship, really. What advice could you give to people that, those serious conversations, like, and specifically for people like Amelia and Bennett, that like they didn't really want to like dive right in. A little bit uncomfortable for them too, because when they did talk about, what did Bennett say? What issues do you have with me, or what doubts do you have, or what? I don't know what he said, but when they're sitting on that bench, what are your thoughts? And like, what advice can you give to people that are just like, hey, serious conversations, like pause, pump the brakes. But, you also visit it from Amelia and Bennett's perspective. That's like, we're just not there yet. I don't know.
In general or for the show? In general?
I guess both.
Okay.
Whichever one you want to take.
I think in general, again, because dating profiles exist. I met my fiance in Bumble. I'm not like dissing dating profiles, but it does make you, it does make you weirdly like list yourselves and you kind of go into interview format, but like that's not what dating's supposed to be. It's supposed to be like, for lack of a better word, the person's vibe, right? Like, do I want to hang out with you? Not like, did you go to this school? Kind of, like, so I think going back to that more in your head, like I had a good friend one time say to me, she was like, I knew I was going to marry my husband because we went to the grocery store and we had fun. Like we were like joking. Isn't that the sweetest thing? Yeah. That we were joking around and we were like just getting random things and we made fun dinners. But like, yeah. So I think, and that was the beauty of Amelia and Bennett. So just figuring out where you both are. I think, let's say you are a woman who does not want to have kids and you know it. I think that's okay maybe to say in the beginning and like be like, real talk, I just want to say this to you because I know for some people it is a deal breaker. I think that's different. If you definitely have deal breakers or like, I never want to get married, you know, stuff that you know can be like for sure a thing that people can't really move past, that I would bring up. But, you know, like how much you make or that you want to move back to the East Coast or whatever. Like, I don't think you need to say these things right away to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're still figuring out if you like each other.
Mm-hmm. And so what about with this show? Because this is, and I do want a caveat though in there. Miles even said on, you know, his decision day making process, he was like, hey, let's kind of wait it out a little more. So I want to, you know, ask that question. So what about with this show, knowing that you have decision day looming, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to have the conversations. Again, I would say wait until like, I don't know, maybe you have like an inside joke or you at least like have kissed or touched or something. Like there's just something that you have something to, you know, pull off of. And then I do really think if you're going to do a show like this, you got to be a little flexible. Like you can't, you cannot go into it being like, I own my home. I will never leave my home. Like it's got to, like maybe your home's now your investment property that you're Airbnb-ing, right? Like you need to have some flexibility or else I don't think you can be rigid in a lot because it wouldn't work. Like I would be very upset if I was matched with someone that was like, and I own this home and it's 20 miles away from everything and we're just going to live there forever. I'd be like, no, didn't sign up for that. You know, so I think just being aware of that in yourself too.
Alaska? I don't want to live in Alaska.
Yeah, like you know, maybe we can go for like a month a year, but nope, I'm good.
Like there's no Wi-Fi. It's terrible.
Yeah.
You're lucky you're The Rock. Gosh.
Yes, if The Rock wants to move to Alaska,
So you just want to be frivolous with your money and spend it like crazy. You know, what's the bad harm in wanting to save money?
I just felt bad that Olivia and Brett's tension was so like obvious and like they both did not say a lot of the things they were thinking. That was kind of like apparent, and I can't tell if Brett actually is an a-hole or if he just like doesn't know how to like show himself on camera. I don't know, you know?
Yeah. I don't think there was a lot of times he was intentionally trying to be a jerk. I think there was a disconnect in what he thought he was saying and, you know, trying to get across and what people received. And then he would be like, so from his perspective, if he's saying like, oh, I want to stay in my house or something, and, you know, I don't want to sell it because I worked really hard to pay this off. And then Olivia's like, yeah, I don't think that's where I want to live, whatever. Then he doesn't make that connection that like, she's hearing something different than what I'm saying. It's just she's reacting in this strong way. So like now that means something about her. And then it just, I really don't think he had bad intentions. I think he's just bad at communication.
It's those sarcastic comments. There's so
I know.
much.
But to him, that's just talking.
That's Did I make this up? Was he engaged or was he in like a serious relationship?
He was engaged before.
And she cheated.
I wonder if that's just not healed yet either. I mean, the serial dating and all, like, I just wonder if there's, you know, some stuff he's got to work through.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big trauma to like
oh my
have
gosh.
decided to spend your life with someone and then they step out on you. Like, ooh.
Yeah.
Which is
especially him. I feel like when he makes the decision, like he's made that decision, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he was sure about it and then she cheated on him. And I think she cheated on, according to him, twice. Like they made back up again and then she did it again. And even Karen, for, you know, I think she mentioned her previous relationship. He had the child, he had a child with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, that's some serious,
that's a lot to handle.
That's hard to get over.
Mm-hmm.
And Amani had been dating a guy and then found out he was married. That was her last relationship before the show. We had all
what is with these people? Oh,
Yeah, like when I hear all these stories, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is what you guys are going through out here. My
It's
gosh,
so much. It's so
it's
much.
scary.
Yeah.
Um, so with them, I did notice. I don't. It felt like it came across as if she was really invested in because she kept on talking about. I saw you match with some of my friends, and I saw that you're going on dates now, and it's just like stop researching him. Like it's over. You guys are over it. Like I get part of it is, like she mentioned the whole, oh, he doesn't like to spend money, but I see you're going on dates now. Like it felt a little petty. And I wonder if that was like a lot of the comments and different reactions she's gotten online, I'm sure hasn't been the best. So maybe she's kind of reacting to that in particular. But and I know it's easier said than done, so I'm not casting any aspersions here, but it felt a little bit petty. And like he didn't really answer, like he didn't mention anything about tracking her down. He just was like, okay, sure. Like I feel like that's what you want to say in a situation like that.
Yeah, I mean, she's human. I think she felt defensive. And I think,
Yeah.
there's fighting styles too, right? And like, I feel like she's a person that maybe if you're in a fight, actually wants you to like fight back a little bit and like have a reaction. And Brett is the exact opposite. He's like, okay, you must be feeling insecure. Like he's not meeting her and sort of her emotional thing. So I'm wondering if that just was even playing out in the end. Like she's like, I just want to jab at him and then have some reaction. And
do you think that might have been what was going on with Christina and Henry as well? Where like, because now that I think about it, she was throwing out crazy statements left and right. And maybe she was anticipating he was going to like throw some back or something.
I think she would have loved if he exploded at some point. Yeah. Because I think she would have been like, oh, wow, okay, there's a person here for me to pull at, because Henry stayed pretty even the whole time. Like, I mean, and then they were sleeping in separate bedrooms. Like there was just not, and sometimes anger, at least it shows you have passion or you care, like some people see that as a positive thing in a way. So I wonder if she was hoping, just any reaction.
Yeah, there was nothing. He is very, very measured. It's like there's nothing. It's hard to get a rise out of him. Like, there's only a few times where he was just kind of actually getting a little bit more like animated or like raising his voice a little bit or just being more emphatic. But he didn't give that a lot to her. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And if her background, if she did have a toxic relationship in the past, like that, like, maybe you're like comparing it to your previous relationship. I'm sure that's a thing as well. Henry, you should have
like learned behavior.
Henry, you should have fought more. That was the solution.
I don't know. I had an issue with that. Everybody telling Henry, like, you just gotta make the move. You just gotta like. I was kind of frustrated with that. Like, it's basically on Henry to convince Christina that she wants to whatever.
Right? Really? So you didn't like that people were. So like, were you angry because the assumption is that he needs to make the move? Like, was that the thing?
Yeah, because it was like it doesn't matter who you are, Henry, and how you are. You are the man, and you're supposed to make the move. And it's almost like no one's really listening to Henry to be like, this is how I am, and this is how I, grow affection. And we did learn at the end that he was already kind of checked out from the beginning. But it was almost like everybody was playing the role reversal with him to be like, you're the guy, so you have to be doing X, Y, and Z, versus this is a relationship. Who are we as people, and how do we approach each other?
Christina flat out was like, I expect you to make the move. I mean, she was like, everyone, she did a lot of comparing too. She was like, every other person I've been with did it, which no one's going to feel good after they hear that,
No.
Like everyone else likes when I kiss them. I don't know what's wrong with you know what I mean? Like, it's just, no one's going to like that.
All the other people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing I did really like is it seems like most of them are friends after all of this. And there's been like, I mean, we all admitted to stalking them all on social media now, but like they're all hanging out, like they're having a good time. It's like it's adorable how Woody and Imani and Karen and Miles live next door to each other. So like they're constantly around one another. I think they'll just be fun to kind of follow and see like where life takes them, because they're all such cool people. So I wish those who didn't end up with a spouse, I wish them the best. I think this was like a good learning opportunity to figure out some of those things.
For sure.
Married at First Sight, second chances.
Second chances. Maybe they would be on that. I don't know.
Do you know what show that is, Dr. Allie?
No.
So they have a spin-off of Married at First Sight called Married at First Sight, Second Chances. And the first season is 2 individuals from season 3 that got divorced. So not divorced from each other, but 2 separate couples. And one guy from that relationship and one girl from the other relationship are now on this Married at First Sight, Second Chances. And they have like a line of people who want to potentially marry them. And the season takes you through them dating these people and kind of like The Bachelor, Bachelorette.
This
version
is
of it.
genius.
Right?
These reality TV shows, they know what they're doing.
They are experts.
Yeah, just crank them out. But like, hey, I mean, I'm down for it. I might watch that tonight.
Are you excited for season 12? Like they gave us like a snippet.
I am. I am.
God.
Yeah.
January.
And I always talk to, one of the producers who we know, and I'm like, this was so great, and she gives me like nothing. She's like, yeah, this next season's really good. Lots of interesting, I think she said like twists, and I was like, oh, it's nothing.
Like, no, I need names. I need social security numbers. Like, what are you doing?
I'm like, give me something.
Oh my gosh.
You're like trying to read her body language. Like, is she?
Yeah, like, no, nothing.
That's amazing. Well, yeah, I think we're all very excited for season 12 to come out.
Yeah.
We're just kind of like counting down to the days till that happens. For the holidays first, though. But thank you so much for joining us again. It's always a pleasure.
Of course.
So much fun. And I thank you for helping me through the many landmines I avoided during this conversation.
I'm happy to hear that you successfully avoided them.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, thank you for a great conversation.
For folks who want to learn more about your work and you, where can they find you?
So I'm on Instagram as the Behavioral Speechy. And then you can go on my website, which is alliearenacommunications.com. And I can give you that for the show notes if that works.
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll definitely include that. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. This has been Cup of Three, end of season 11. Very excited for season 12 to be coming out, as I just keep saying, because I cannot wait.
Speak it into existence. Speak it into existence.
Please follow us on Instagram at Cup of Three Podcast. We're also Cup of Three Podcast at Gmail. Send us your thoughts so we can include that in a future episode. And until then, everyone have a great night. It's night for us. We'll see you next time. All right. Bye.